Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We are live in the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today, Casey Jacox. Well, what is up, brother?
Well, it is lots up. I got a lot going on. I'm surrounded by Blue Jay Nation again here in Seattle. You guys just always come down. You take our seats. You root against the Mariners, but I'm honored to be a guest.
Very, very cool. You know what? We're gonna go a little different with this. Before we went on live, Casey said he had a little story behind his name. We're gonna start out with that today. What's the story? Let's start with that.
Okay, so Jeff, in all transparency, he wanted to make sure you pronounce my name right, which he did. He crushed it, did awesome. But my wife and I, we were in Sedona, Arizona, 1 year anniversary, which is a long time ago. We've been married for 22 years, and we're getting couples massages. And the lady comes in and she's like, "Mr. and Mrs. Jacox." And instead of like correcting her, I said, "Oui." And my wife like almost like starts rolling laughing. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "She spoke French. I tried to speak French and I let her roll with it." So now my buddies call me Jacox sometimes.
So you got a little French Canadian there. So you got to cheer for the Blue Jays in one way or another. We don't have the you guys don't have the Expos anymore here. I love it. I love
Expos hat in 8th grade, believe it or not.
I mean, they made a comeback a little few years ago. So the Jays were doing their last 2 or 3 preseason games in Montreal prior to COVID for about 3 years. So I took the kids up and we did a family little road trip to Montreal and watched one of the last Jays preseason games in the stadium there, which is man, that place is beat up and run down. I don't even know why they did that, but it was pretty beat up and run down, but it was a cool experience, Montreal Expos. So let's start off by quickly getting to know what you're up to work-wise, career-wise, business-wise, podcast-wise. And then I want to change it up and really get into who you are in your story, because there's a ton of layers there with college ball and all that stuff like that. So let's start off just the audience to get to know who you are and what you're currently up to, Casey.
Yep. No, I appreciate so I spent 22 years in corporate, 20 years at a company called K-Force, was a seller, sold staffing and technology, really consulting services. Left in March of 2019, wrote a book called Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. Started this podcast called the Quarterback Dadcast, which Jeff, was a gracious host, guest on mine. And then I became a sales and leadership coach, which I did not plan on doing that. It just kind of happened. And so I continued to surrender to the fact of when you've done something for 20 years, you forget how much you know.
Yeah.
And I'm inspired by 2 words, which is humility and vulnerability, which is, I think, the equation, which is leadership. And now I'm just really working with companies to help them focus more about being curious, focus more about asking great questions, and helping their customers think more about what's important to them, where they want to go, versus, forcing features and benefits down people's throats when they don't care. They don't even understand what they're buying. Like, focus on solving a problem versus pitching a product. That's really, in a quick and dirty, that's what I'm up to right now.
There's one thing I want to dive into there, and one thing you said there, and you said you teach how to ask questions. You've been married, you said, for 22 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just this morning having a conversation with somebody, and we're just going by the last 12 months on how many couples have divorced. We're just going on an outline of our social friends, and quite a few people we know all have separated in the last 12 months because they're all confined in a house. And for the first time ever, they were forced to interact with their husband and wife on a higher level. And a lot of them didn't know how to. They kind of became numb over the years in their relationship. How important, I'm going on 18 years, you've been 22 years, asking questions and knowing where your spouse or your partner is at that time in their lives, I think is so important. I think a lot of people get numb with a relationship, just become this manufacturer, just come home and routine. How important is it, even in a relationship, and I'm throwing it out there on you, is to ask the right questions?
I think it's awesome. It's everything. I mean, I think one thing I learned from one of my guests, a guy named Matt Miller, great dude. He's actually a peer of mine in this. I'm a speaker and coach with a company called Limitless Minds, which we train and we teach about neutral thinking.
Okay.
A lot more in depth to that. But Matt talked about one simple question, which is, how can I be a better dad this week? And I take that to the next level and say, how can I be a better husband?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think marriage is not about you anymore. It's about how can you be it's like a competition. I'm very, very competitive. My wife's competitive. My kids are. So we're always like, how can we be a better teammate for the family today or this week? And it seems simple, but when you really come at it selfishly, and simple example, you walk by the dishwasher's full. Do you walk by and like, someone else will do it?
Yeah.
Or do you do little things and it's not tick for tack. It's not who's keeping score.
Yeah.
Just serve others. And, for my wife and I, we just, I've known her since 7th grade and we started dating in 8th. So, I'm 45. It's a long time. I'll let you guys do the math, but, it's not easy at times. Right. And I think one of the things my dad taught me, unfortunately, he's not in the best health right now, but I remember out on our wedding night, he said, never go to bed angry.
Yeah.
I've not done, there's been definitely times where we have, but for the most part, I mean, the power of saying, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And forgiveness it's everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I 1,000% agree. Like I grew up in a household where I would see my parents argue, but 5 minutes later they'd be having a coffee together. And it was something that just instilled in me from a young age, right? I mean, they would argue, scream, shout, slam doors, and then 5 minutes later they're having an espresso together, sitting down laughing. And it was always that mindset where it's like you forgive everything because you know the higher purpose. You guys, you both have a common goal, right? And I love that. So Casey, growing up, where'd you grow up? How many siblings did you have? And give me a little rundown of your childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I grew up. I have a sister who's 18 months younger than me. Grew up, I'd say, middle class, just in, not the nicest neighborhood, but not the worst. I mean, just like, normal family. My dad was a Whirlpool salesman for 30 something years. My mom worked in a medical office.
So sales grew, and sales is in your blood, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And, sports, I played a ton of sports growing up: baseball, basketball, football, soccer, golf. We were always competing, always playing, I always joke, one of my good buddies, Greer Smith, he's now a wealth manage partner at a company called Brighton Jones. And he and I had the same moms where they were loud, God love them, but God, they were loud. We used to joke, like, why do you guys need the phone? You could just get out the front door and talk to each other from the front doorstep 5 houses away.
Yeah.
But we would always get that list of like, you wake up, and like, what? Like this chores. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how am I going to do all this stuff? And so we would bang it out, and then we'd just play pickleball, street ball, football, ride our bikes. We very, very loving house, supportive. My dad grew up in a time where I don't remember a lot of like I love yous or affection. And that's one thing, not a negative way, but I think that's for me, like want the opposite way for my family. Like we say, love you all the time.
Yeah.
Not afraid to kiss my son or daughter.
Yeah.
Because it's, love is so powerful.
Yeah. I was just saying that. Yeah. 100%.
But yeah, I mean, I was very, very lucky, but didn't travel. I mean, traveling for us was camping. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the life.
Where did you grow up? It was in Seattle as well, or?
South Seattle, about 30 miles south, in a small little suburb called Renton, Washington. Bigger, it's like a big, small city, one of the larger high schools in the state at the time. Go Kentridge, go Chargers.
What was your go-to sports? And obviously I know where it ended, but where was your go-to sport playing? And like, did you play at a rep level, any sports, or was it more just high school? Was it more for fun? Like, what did you play growing up sports?
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm bald now, but I was a soccer guy, and I had a perm in the back because that's what soccer guys do. So I would like moose it up a little bit and make it look. I was a pretty good soccer player, but I always wanted to play football. And my mom wouldn't let me.
I'm gonna wait for one of those turn back Thursday photos. You know that I could be breaking your balls for that one now on Instagram.
Dude, oh, you have to, man. I mean, I was like hey, Preki, if anybody, Preki, Steve Jungle, some old school soccer guys. No, but I was going to play football, but my mom wouldn't let me play until I was in 7th grade.
Interesting.
And my cousin, a guy named James Compton, he played football at the University of Washington, and my aunt didn't let him play till he was a sophomore, and he ended up getting a full ride. So yeah. I'm glad she did it because, soccer taught me a lot about athleticism. I played baseball. That was a go-to. We were just, it wasn't like now where kids were specializing way too early in my mind. Yeah. I think it's, I was from soccer to football. I was doing everything, and you went right into it, and kids could be kids back then. Now there's just like so much, I think, ridiculous amounts of pressure.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a high level now in the competitiveness and the athletic ability. I mean, it's so crazy. I always tell kids, you could look at a kid at 9-10 years old playing a rep sport. It's the most athletic or the best on the team. But with all the training these kids are doing, by the time you turn 13, 14, is the hardest worker, just surpasses them always. And they're getting such high levels of training. You're getting kids, like you said, they become one sport at like 8-9 years old. I mean, if we're living in hockey land here in Canada, these kids, like every kid is going to make the NHL in their parents' eyes here. And it's literally, I mean, these kids have shooting coaches, they have skating coaches, they have fitness coaches. I mean, these kids are 7-8 years old, and they have like 5-6 different coaches. Their parents are dropping $15,000-$20,000 a year on their hopes their kids are going to make the NHL. And you know what the percents are there, right? Go play the lotto. Go play the lotto. Go play the lotto. You have a better chance. And it's just crazy, right? But it's living vicariously through your child's eyes, and that's it's sad, but I mean it's a reality with a lot of parents, right?
I think that's a whole nother podcast.
I was going to say it.
I'll just say that I believe that if your kid's good enough, they're going to play, and it's going to and in the end, for me, I have 2 athletic kids. I push them to just be fit. Yeah. And I would rather, Jeff, in 10 years when they graduate high school, or not earlier than that. I mean, my son's 15, got daughter's 12. I'd rather say, man, Ryder, what a heck of a kid. Good handshake. Showed 100%. Up on time. Yeah. Respectful. That guy's going to be a great husband. He's going to be a great leader. Yeah. I mean, I was one of the lucky 1%, 2% played college football. I mean, I'm lucky. And if you had told me at 7 or 8 or 9, people would have said, no way. I was an average athlete until like junior year in high school, where I had my like peak and like, whoa, maybe I'm not too bad at this sport. Yeah. Yeah. But
so it was in high school when you really clicked in and really found a passion for it and really like say, I got something here.
No, I mean, I loved football, but like in ninth grade, we had a pretty decent team. And then for some reason I was like, I joke, I was like, remember the movie Beetlejuice?
Yeah.
That was like the white Beetlejuice, like the skinny kid in the toothpick where I was like 6'1", 135 my sophomore year. That's what I should.
So how old were you then?
15.
15. Yeah. You know what's funny? When I was 14, 15, so I was about 15. So you're looking at grade 9 going to grade 10. That September, that school end of school year from grade 9 to grade 10, I was 6'2", 135. And that summer, I was just like, I need that. And that was the first time I actually started lifting weights. It was that summer. And then from there on, it just whatever I started putting on weight. I was that skinny little run too. And I played competitive. I played rep baseball. I was on the high school hockey team. I was a starting goal. Like I played a lot of sports, but I was just that skinny kid. I go back and look at photos. I'm surprised I didn't break just by running, man. I was so skinny and tall, right? Yeah.
You just described, we have that in common. I was 6'1", 134. They used to call me steak and potatoes. I was like, why? Because you got to eat, bro. And I did eat. My metabolism would just keep.
Yeah.
But my friend's dad, a guy named Chuck Lewandowski, I said, I don't know if I want to play football. He's like, no, you're playing football. It's like, he's like, you're playing quarterback and you're going to like it. It was almost like, oh, okay, I guess I'll keep playing. And our sophomore team, we had like 17 kids. And obviously in Canada, you guys play with 12. I believe we played it with 11 down here.
Yeah.
And we had to do everything. I was special teams, linebacker. I mean, I was getting just crushed. But I started getting better. And I remember this coach say, Case, your stock's starting to rise. And I was like, what does that mean? I didn't know what he was talking stock market. I was just so naive.
Yeah.
And then my high school football coach, the head coach, Marty Osborne, said, if you do these things, weight room, blah, 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 you'll be our starting quarterback. And I was like, who? Like me? I mean, and it's the power of speaking truth into people. Like sometimes you don't know what you're capable of. You got to have outside people talk about it. And I still am so thankful. He's still a friend, mentor to this day. And I learned so much about the power of goal setting. I learned so much about the power of visualization. I mean, I still can, as I'm 45 years old, as a 16-year-old, I can still see my goal sheet next to my bed with my bench, my squat, my clean, my 40 time, my body fat, my 3-cone, like all the things I was supposed to do. And now I just realized, okay, I want that. And that's where the fire got in me. And then we had an okay junior year. We, decent. I think I got honorable mention, but we just didn't have the ton of talent. But then I that summer after my junior year, I went to the University of Washington football camp because one of my teammates was going, and I wanted to see, hey, how would I do up there? And I was doing fairly well. I didn't really think anything of it. Again, I try to be naive. I want to be the oldest naive guy in the world at 92 later. But at the end of the camp, and I'm throwing with guys that are like legit D1 dudes, and it's like, and they brought my talent up, and so it was just a lot of fun people to be around. And that end of the camp, they're handing out awards, and my buddy got award. I was like, oh yes, Kev, that a boy. And then at the end, they're handing out the most outstanding quarterback of the camp. And in my mind, no way.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking about it. And all of a sudden, they announced my name. I'm like, what? You got to be kidding me. So now I'm like, I walk down the field in the stadium. Parents are there, and they give me all this gear and then signed stuff. And they said, so you're on our radar now. We're gonna here's tickets to all the home games. You'll be in the locker room for the game. If you need to send us your best game film you think between September, October, November. We're going to be at one of your games each month. We're not going to tell you when. And it went from not being recruited, like I was like a D3, D2 kind of like NAIA guy, to like all of a sudden now I'm like, holy cow, this is legit. Fast forward to our senior year. A guy that I beat out my junior year was an amazing athlete. He ended up playing professional baseball to AAA with the Yankees. Guy named Shane Cronin, good dude.
Yeah.
And the last play, we have these things called jamborees. I don't know if you have those in Canada, but jamboree is like a pre-practice game. You have game simulation against 3 other high schools. And the last play of that jamboree, my senior year, after we've just now crushed every team, the jamboree, we're doing great. I ended up breaking my foot in 4 spots. I have surgery 3 hours later. I don't play football at all my senior year. The guy that I beat out, Shane, now he has to play quarterback. He was playing tight end. Now he got put right into the thing. And now I'm just still in shock. Like I kind of fast forward in the story, but I worked so hard, Jeff. Like I'm talking getting up at 6 a.m. I'm lifting twice a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm throwing after school on Tuesday and Thursday to anybody who'd play catch. I don't care if you're the freaking trombone player, the Spanish teacher. I don't care who you are. We're running routes for me.
Yeah.
So Shane goes on to do awesome things for our team. And I'm a captain now, remind you. So he took us to the state playoffs, first time in 20 years. He was named second team all league, first time in years. And he broke our single season passing yardage record that hasn't been broken in 20 years. And I have to watch as a 17-year-old kid. Now, games 1 through 3, I'm selfish. I'm thinking, screw you, Shane, please get hurt. Please get hurt. God, I hope you throw interceptions. Do bad. I mean, all the negative thoughts, super selfish. All about me. Why me? Why'd this get taken away from me?
Yeah.
Almost depressed. I was crying at times at home. I don't think my parents knew how to really support me. My girlfriend, wife at the time now, she was, she did her best to there. But finally one day I said, this is BS. I don't know what clicked, but I had the courage to go tell my coach, Coach, I'm embarrassed. I'm not acting like a captain. I'm miserable. Everything that I work for is taken away. I want to play college football. That's not going to happen. I mean, just horrible attitude. And he goes, man, I'm so proud of you that you had the courage to come talk to me about this. Let's figure out a role for you. I'm like, what do still kind of having this shitty attitude, pardon my French real quick.
Yeah.
And he goes, Case, you know this offense better than I do. Why don't you go up in the booth and you help me call plays? You'll be my offensive coordinator for the rest of the season. I'm like, really? And right when he said that, like, I get goosebumps telling the story. Like I get like a vacuum sucked all that negative, selfish energy out. And I'm like, let's go. Remember that day I came down, talked to the team, said, I'm so excited about my new role. And I was like, boom, captain, back to my old self. And dude, that's what, 45 minus 16, 17, long time, 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
I still remember those emotions and they still affect me today as a dad, a coach, a business leader. when I was running sales teams, when I was our number one sales producer for 10 years straight, the ups, the downs, like that moment was adversity. I'm like, it can't get worse. Like in my mind,
your turning points in your life, right? There's trigger turning points. Yeah. So let's surpass that. So you still played college ball.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I was 12th on the depth chart when I went there. A school called Central Washington University gave me a chance. And I started just kind of moving up. I almost didn't redshirt my freshman year, which means, I don't know if you guys have that in Canada, but it's like when you practice for a year, but you're on the team, but you don't use a year of your eligibility. So you actually can go to school for 5 years or 4 years and a quarter and still play a fifth year. So met so many great teammates, had amazing coaches. There's a lot of great quarterbacks that have come from Central Washington, like a guy named John Kitna, some Canadians people might know, a guy named Mike Riley.
Okay.
He was a Central guy. Zach Hill.
Is this a Division I, Division II? What is
Division II?
Division II, yeah.
Division II. And a lot of Division II is like skill position wise. So when I say skill positions, like quarterback, running back, corners, they're usually folks that like either like me, like injuries, or you slip through the cracks, but now you got a chip on your shoulder. Like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. And so I was, blessed, played behind John Kitna, played in the NFL for 17 years. And then I was a 3-year starter. I used to joke with people. My goal was always to try to go after, like, throw the most interceptions in a game so I get my name in the record book, because John owned every other one. But I was very, very, very fortunate. I got teased in the Arena League when I got done and had a chance to go play overseas, but I was ready to just be done.
Did you go overseas, or you never went to play?
I never went.
Yeah. You played in arena ball?
I got a tryout with Portland. I got cut, and then I had a chance with San Jose, and they were like going to give me a roster spot. But at the time, I'd already worked like 8 months at another job, thought I was done. And then I was like, my buddies want me to do it. But I'm like, you would have made like 40 grand, and I'd be working in a warehouse the other 6 months out of the year. And it's like,
yeah. I mean, it's changed a bit now in the last few years. I mean, obviously 2020 changed, but like, I'm not a big fan. I don't pay attention much to it, but I do know a lot of athletes. One of my first companies I ran when I was 19, 20, I trained a whole bunch of CFL athletes in a fitness. And so, I mean, back then, you're looking at 15, 20 years ago, these guys were making like 15, 20,000 a year, and they all had full-time jobs. It was crazy. Like, your professional athlete making 15 G's to play a pro sport, which is crazy. I mean, it's changed a bit now, but I mean, if you're not a star in the team, you're still making 20, 30 G's a year. Like, you're not supporting the lifestyle of an athlete. And a lot of these guys want the lifestyle of an athlete, right? So it's hard to fathom. Then you look at the NFL and what they make, but also the careers are so short. They're so short, man. Yeah.
Average 3 years, I think, is the NFL average 3 years. And then, a lot of those folks, unfortunately, don't manage the money that well. They think it's like, man, paid a gazillion bucks, but you didn't.
No.
Buy this, buy that.
But that's what it is, right? They buy, and then it abruptly ends, and then they have all this debt, and they don't know how to deal with it, and then life just goes on. And a lot of them, their identity stuck to that sport. Did you have that at all when you were playing college football?
No, I didn't, because I think because of the lesson I learned in high school, it can be taken away from me tomorrow.
Yeah.
Even when I left, even when I left corporate, I mean, you would have thought like, oh my God, this guy's going to be depressed. I was our number one rep nationally at this company for 10 straight years, left as our firm's all-time leading salesperson, the 60-year company history. The time when it became, and I was an amazing divorce. I'm still in good. I was texting with my old boss this morning. And when I left, I knew it was time. My gut said, and in the end, I would tell people in the companies I coach now, as much as I think I'm so important, and as Jeff, maybe you think you're so important, if I dial 911, our phones aren't ringing. We're not that important. And the number of people that still work at Kforce that some remember me, sure, but some are like, who? What? Yeah. I don't know that guy. I mean, and it's such a peaceful thought and mindset to have, that knowing that it's not negative or about yourself, but we're all replaceable. Life will go on.
100%.
And 100%. When you don't get so self-absorbed with that, it's freeing, and it opens up a thought process, neurons, mindset, just about what's possible. Now let's go do something different.
Yeah. Let's talk about your wife a bit. So you guys met at a very young age. I mean, grade 7, grade 8 to actually make it through together all these years. What are a couple of keys for people listening? And it's funny because I had just released a podcast yesterday on a gentleman named John Hewlin, and he's separated. And one of our topics that we talked about, and he's very passionate about, is he's very open with saying that his divorce could have been stopped. It could have been retracted if he put in the work. Give me a little understanding of what are the keys of keeping a good marriage.
I think a servant's mindset. If I had a hat rack at my door and I walk in the door, it's not for hats, it's for my ego. Hang my ego on the hat rack.
Yeah.
Some of the best advice I got in my life early in my career is you can be right or get what you want. Rarely do you get both. And so I think that's great marriage advice, because so many times it's like, well, I'm going to go do this because, well, how about, hey, what do you want to do today, honey? Hey, kids, what do you guys want to do? What show do you want to watch tonight?
Yeah.
Right. If you make it about other people, in the end, it's going to come around. I think about relationships are like boomerangs. Just keep throwing them out, serving others. Doesn't mean like I'm a doormat and I just take one for the team every single time. But for me, communication, setting expectations, follow through.
Yeah.
The gift of listening, not hearing. So like when I talk to my wife, I put the phone down, look her in the eye.
Yeah.
I wrote a chapter about that in my book, yet people don't slow down to listen. It's a massive gift when you give someone.
Yeah.
Right.
You're preaching to the choir. Everything you're saying is I live by, but I love that you're radiating it and you're saying it in your own way, because it's so powerful, right? It's simple things that I think a lot of people know, but how many people actually do? That's the difference, right? We all know it. And I think what happens with relationships is, and I said this prior to you, is when you're dating, it's all about keeping her or him interested. You're constantly trying. And then you get married and you're in a honeymoon stage for that year or 2 years. And it's like, yeah, everything's great, but you're still trying. And then once you have kids, that attention span changes and they become your priority. They become your life. And now it's so easily to forget your spouse or your partner. And then as the years happen, you just literally I call it being numb. I see a lot of my friends in relationships where they get home and you could tell they're not happy.
Yeah. And
it's sad because I've told couples, like it's better to separate and instead of living in this misery, because at the end of the day, we only have one life. And if you're really looking at how it's impacting your kids, you coming home and being sad and depressed every day, it's not a positive thing for your kids either, right? So you have to look at both sides of it. So I think everything you said there is so true and so powerful. So podcasting, we're gonna go tons of different directions with this conversation. Podcasting, when did you get into it, and why did you get into it?
I did an internal podcast at my company, K-Force, and I would just interview like K-Force people that want to hear their story. And
when was that? When did that start?
That was would have been 2016, 2017. It was an internal podcast, so I didn't get to do it externally. And I knew I always wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. So when I left, I was like, and I thought about, God, what should it be? Quarterback. I love dad stuff. I didn't know there wasn't a lot of podcasts out there about dads. And I was like, well, I played quarterback, and it was like, hey, I can make a lot of Uncle Rico jokes at my expense from pulling dynamite. And then I thought, quarterback, and it's just dadcast, and just kind of had a good ring to it. And then now the idea was there, but I was stuck for some reason. It wasn't happening. Yeah. And my buddy, Nunez, massive shout out to him. One day he goes, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, I got to do that. I don't have the equipment. I don't, all the excuses.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He's like, get off your ass. I'm coming to your house right now. You have the equipment. It's sitting in, I know where you have it, and we're going to fricking put it together. We're going to craft. And I'm like, okay, I just needed a little punch in the old frickin' nards, and he did it. And I so in debt to him. And we were going to do it together. And then we realized that's going to be kind of tough having two hosts. And then I said, dude, I think I got to just do my own, bro. And he's like, no, this is actually perfect timing, because I got this new job. And then I just start interviewing. And I'm sure, I don't know if you, but man, I get therapy every week. I talk to a dad. It is reminders of who I want to be, what my legacy is. I want to be known as someone who just was curious and kind and asked great questions. And my wife talked, one of the best things during this podcast during too, she said, you have 18 summers to make an impact on these kids. And I love that. It's so good because it just makes you realize time is going by fast and it's not slowing down.
Super fast.
Dude,
Fast. Our kids are, yeah. It's funny you're saying that. I don't know if you saw a post I did the other day. My son just turned 13, Tiago. And on his birthday, I'm like, what do you want to do, buddy? And he's like, I want to learn how to drive. I'm like, let's go. He jumped through in my Jeep, my daughter, 14, put them both in my Jeep. And I've been doing driver lessons with them every weekend. We hit a parking lot. I let them go. And they got the hang of it at 13, 14. Because that was me at 13, 14. My dad was teaching me how to drive. So it's funny. It's funny that you said that. Go continue.
Oh yeah. So he's driving now and he's in driver's ed, which is just like,
so you can start driver's ed at 15 in your,
yeah.
So ours is 16. Ours is 16 here.
We have to get our license at 16, but we can drive with a permit at 15.
No, here at 16 is when it all starts here.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So your son's 15, your daughter is 12.
Yep. She'll be 13 in September.
Yeah. So my daughter turns 15 Mother's Day, Sunday. Okay. And my son just turned 13. So they're very close in age. We just have the swap them there but yeah, that's it's a fun age, but it's exactly what you said. When you look at that age, they're in high school. Things are changing. You look at my daughter's already talking about university, and she's already talking about. It's so crazy. Is I picked up a new build condo up in BC, British Columbia, and it'll be ready in 4 years. And she's like, in 4 years, Dad, I'll be going to university. I was like, maybe I'll borrow your condo and I'll go to university in BC. I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. Calm down there. But she's already planning these things in her head, right? Which is pretty amazing. But it's just like, wow, time is flying. So when did you start your podcast? When did you actually release your first episode?
January of 2019. No, January 2019. I'm going on a year and a half. That makes sense?
No, 2020.
Would have been
2020. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So just before me, I started in end of March, starting of April. Yeah. So just a couple months before me. And it's crazy during the pandemic, you actually did it right before the pandemic. During the pandemic, everybody being home, it's like the podcast world took off to another level. They're saying there's 1.8 million podcasts right now. How many of those are truly active? That's another thing. How, like you said, it's been through it's been such a journey for you because you've been able to talk and relate to other fathers. Give me a couple stories or a couple guests you've had that really have impacted you.
Yeah, one that comes to mind is, two. I'd say one is a guy named Swen Nader, who played basketball for UCLA down here in the States, California, for the famous coach John Wooden. Okay. He was one of the best coach ever. He called him the Wizard of Westwood. And if people don't know him, his first practices, he would teach them how to put socks on and how to tie their shoes. And people are like, these are Division I athletes. What are you doing? He's like, he didn't want guys getting blisters, so they couldn't practice. So like the little amount of detail. And Swen talked about those stories. Swen also he took a full ride to UCLA, and John Wooden said, come here, but you're not going to play that much. But you're going to play against the best basketball player in the nation, a guy named Bill Walton. But I guarantee I'll get you to the NBA. Or you can go to someplace else and be a starter. And he's like, and people are like, what are you doing, dude? Why would you go be a backup? And he said it was the best decision he ever made. And so we talked about fatherhood. He told me those stories. And I'm just like, dude, I'm talking to a guy.
Did he ever make the NBA?
Yeah, 12-year career.
Oh, wow. Okay.
12-year career. And so he wrote a book, back to your question about what impacted me, his story about writing this book, which says, you have not taught until they have learned. And it's a great book. It's a great book. And it made me realize what I was not doing well as a dad and mom. And I'm not a mom, but my wife, we were doing too much for our kids. And our excuse was, well, we were busy and I had a job and sports and getting kids to practices, where we weren't slowing down and saying, no, frickin' make your own eggs. You can do it.
Oh, I love it. This morning. Go finish. Sorry.
So I was the pancake guy and I love making pancakes. I love doing short order cook stuff, but I'm like, they got to learn. because I'm actually hurting them by not letting them do it. They need to learn to do the laundry. And we weren't challenging them enough to do some more things. And so like that episode dramatically changed my mindset.
We literally 4 hours ago, shout out to Marsha. I had a conversation on the podcast with a national, she's from Canada, and she's a coach, and she went through a very challenging time with her son. Both her children at 13 and 14 became addicted to drugs. And she went through an incredible story. And it's funny that we actually had this whole conversation where she said, like, her time with her as a parent, it's not just only loving them, it's actually preparing them for life. And that's one thing I'm being very like, both my kids both do laundry, they both cook, they both clean. Like we get home and my 14-year-old daughter makes dinner for us. And I'm not even over exaggerating. This kid could cook. And we've started this from a young age, and it's more of a preparation. Like even in the summertime, I bring my kids to the office here, and I'll let them pack it. I let them do boxes, let them do stuff. It's preparing them. So they are they're not scared of the work. They understand they have to work. At the same time too, they're prepared for simple things in life, right? I mean, I remember growing up, I would see I came from a hardcore European family, but most European dads would work, come home, sit down on the couch and have dinner. My dad would be cooking more than my mom. My dad would do more than my mom at home. So I was brought up in that system already. So when I got married, like I still make my bed every day. Like I make the bed in the house. I cook as much as my wife. So is understanding that. So I appreciate that. And is that something that you have instilled in your kids now?
Yeah, totally. Where we live now, we don't have a lot of, I got rid of like all the maintenance. Like I wanted no grass. So we have we're lucky to live on some property. And so we have like a lot of rocks we have like turf areas that we just not maintain. So, we spend time in the East Coast though, in the summer. We'll go back to this small island off the coast of Massachusetts called Cuttyhunk Island. And so, what's fun about that is my kids get to do jobs that most kids don't get to do. Like they're shucking oysters. They're working on an oyster farm. My daughter this summer is going to be working on what's called on the raw bar boat. So going around in a boat, shucking oysters, putting them on the half shell for like these high-end boaters. And so she's going to learn, and mom and dad aren't there to help. And so they're going to be around like teenagers that are going to be, probably rough them up a little bit, but it's like, that's how you grow up and learn. And,
when did that start? When did you start doing that with your kids?
So their first summer working was last year. But we've been going out since they were, infants, to this place that my wife's great grandparents had a piece of land out there. And so we've been.
So is it close to Cape Cod?
Yeah, it's south of it. It's the furthest. It's the southest island of the part of the Elizabethan Islands. It's about an hour boat ride off New Bedford, in the Boston area.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I told you that. I don't know if we talked about that, but when I was a kid, for almost 13 years straight, we would spend 3 to 4 weeks every summer in Cape Cod. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love that. And the first road trip I took with my family was to Cape Cod. I took them to Cape Cod. I love Cape Cod. Yeah. But okay, sorry, continue there.
I was going to say, well, other shout out I want to give back to your question about, some episodes that were impacting. So many episodes, but one specifically was a guy named Dale Favors, who's in New Jersey. And in the heart of Black Lives Matter, social unrest, I wanted to make myself and I was one of those white people that didn't understand the word privilege, not because I didn't, I was just because I'd played football, Samoans, Hawaiians, African Americans. And I didn't ever think about race because I didn't have to, and they were my buddies. Yeah. And I said, you know what? Like I was in my mind, I said, I'm part of the problem because I'm not diving in. And I had this, and Dale was so supportive and so, open. And I said, I want to interview you live on Zoom. We're going to promote it. And I want to talk about race and fatherhood. And I want to talk, and I want my wife watched it. My kids watched it. My parents watched it. I had friends watched it. Former high school teachers watched it. And it was just me being as vulnerable as possible and asking questions about, things that you're teaching your kids that I won't ever understand. And it just dramatically changed me. I'm now, since then, I've interviewed many my friends or people of color, and I just attack this stuff. I want it because I want to. Growth is uncomfortable, but it's so awesome when you get through it.
Yeah. And I mean, the more people bring it to light, the more awareness there is, the better it is overall for everyone. So I appreciate that. And I think that's very, very important. And I love what you said that, because it's sometimes you in your head, because you're not brought in those experiences, you think everything is right. You think you understand it. So I love the vulnerability of putting yourself in a situation to fully understand it and put yourself in those situations uncomfortably. So that, I think it's so important, so valid you did that. Any other ones? Any other stories?
Yeah, Andy Parks, who's a professor. Let's see, let's see, I got you're joking. You're 20
I'm joking.
No, but no. The one thing that was awesome, your episode hasn't been released yet, but it was, what I loved about our conversation was we're doing similar things and we're supporting each other because we're trying to help dads be better dads, right? Man, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I'm not doing my podcast to make money. I'm not making money. I have a couple of sponsors that help me cover my costs.
Yeah.
And it's about serving.
Yeah.
And I love that I'm in a spot in life where I can do this.
Yeah.
And blessed to do this. But Michael Gervais is a big one too. I don't know if you know that name. He's runs the Finding Mastery podcast. He works with Coach Carroll from the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah.
I was super honored when I got him on my former boss, guy named Jeffrey Neal. He talked about reconciliation with the father before he passed away. I talked to a former college football coach buddy of mine named Ryan Sawyer. He talked about depression, like full on in a ball, crying on the floor.
Yeah.
And then leaving a Division I coach. They were national champions. And people were like, what are you doing, dude? Why are you leaving? But he wasn't happy anymore.
Yeah.
And so like just inspiring these stories.
I was exactly that word, stories. You just never know someone's true story. And it's pretty amazing when somebody could embrace their own story and be able to outlet it to other people. I think it's so powerful, right? Because you never know what somebody's truly going through until they're able to impact your story and bottle up and present it to somebody else. So I love that. With yourself, okay, let's talk a little bit about your sales, because sales is obviously a huge part of who you are, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. I mean, my one of my first companies was sales when I was 19, 20. I was doing consulting, and I love the whole idea of the sales because it's something, and I think we talked about this, if I'm not mistaken, is something I always say, if they're going to teach one skill in high school, it should be sales, because once you learn how to sell something, your rest of your life, everything seems to get a lot easier. What areas of sales do you think are the most important to teach, and what part of it is impactful to everybody?
So I maybe shout out here. So I, as an author, which feels good to say, I'm out to prove that football guys can put sentences together. We're not that dumb. Okay. heavy joke, heavy sarcasm, my expense. But I can answer your question in the 6 chapters that I wrote about, which is the power of setting positive intention for the day, power of treating people the way you want to be treated. When we're in kindergarten, it was super important. But as we get to adults, it's okay to flip people off. It's okay to be rude to a coworker. It's okay to show up late. All these things dramatically impact relationships and affect the culture. Second chapter I wrote about is expectation management and follow-up. Chapter 3 is about listening versus hearing. You can actually practice listening. There's skills, there's exercises I talk about in the book. Chapter 4 is about documenting what you hear, what you say, what you see in a CRM, customer relationship management software.
Yeah.
Chapter 5 is about ditching the ego, being able to practice and actually role play your craft. And 6 is being patient. So all 6 of those things are assumed things that we just do. Like people know how to do it, but colleges aren't teaching that. They're teaching the academics.
Yeah.
In the social world where we're all texting, where it's social media this, social media that. I'm like, when my kids want to have a friend sleepover, don't text them, call them. Yeah. You're going to pick up the phone and call them. And you're going to say, hey, my dad said it's okay if this night, do you want to come? Like, I want to teach communication, because I think sales is not about what you sell, which I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Selling is about curiosity.
I love that.
And one of the things I teach that wasn't my idea. I got taught to me in my career by a guy named John Kaplan. He told me these things called TED-based questions. Tell me, explain, describe. So you always need to ask. And so it's a great exercise for if there's dads or moms listening to use it on your kids. So an example would be, hey, Ryder, I would say, hey, Ryder, how was school? Good. What'd you do? Well, nothing much. Did you have fun? Yeah, it was all right. I'm like, sweet. That was a good conversation. All right, but go play Xbox. We'll see in 2 hours. Or Ryder, tell me about math today. Describe the hardest part. Explain why you like math versus science. Tell me about a time you laughed at school. I want to pretend like I was there. Describe when you think about basketball, describe one thing you like or when you're really, really good at, and tell me about one area that you wish you were better at. They have to talk.
Intentional questions.
Yeah. And if your relationship sucks with someone, point the finger at yourself. It's because you're asking shitty questions.
Yeah.
If I'm having bad client relationships, not their fault. I always tell people deals are won or lost in discovery.
Yeah.
If we're not, and as a seller, the reason why I think I had success over a long period of time, it was always, what could I do better? Not what my team needs to do better, what my clients need to do better. Oh, the market sucks. Oh, COVID.
Yeah.
Dude, someone's going to be successful. Why not you?
Yeah.
You know, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day on average, science says. Of those thoughts, 80% are negative.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I've heard that stat before, and it's that it goes back to that mindset too. I mean, I always tell everybody too is we all have 24 hours in a day. I mean, there's no reason why somebody else is successful and you're not. It's the sacrifices.
Yeah, I go even a deeper. I love the 24 hours a day. It's 1,440 minutes. We all have. So when people say, "Oh, I don't have time to do that," BS. Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
we all have time. You make different choices than I do.
Yeah.
And be okay with that.
Yeah. I call it, I mean, we talk about that too, is your non-negotiables, right? What is truly important to you? If it is important to you, you'll make time for it.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. Superpower. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
What was my superpower?
If you had one, what would it be?
Well, I have two.
Okay.
I have two. It's,
you have two.
Yeah, I do. These are great ones too. Miraculously remembering useless lines from 80s comedies, movies.
Interesting. Okay. Give me a couple.
Okay. And the second one is saying the most random, bizarre, weird, awkward thing that comes in my mind, and the filter should slow down, but it just still comes out. Yet when it does come out, it comes out socially acceptable. It opens people up. It makes relationships go from 0 to 100. And my wife will say, how the hell did you just get away with saying that? I'm like, probably tone, delivery, intent.
Yeah.
Naivety in my voice. But, I just embrace it because like the things that frustrate me when people say, fake it till you make it. Worst advice ever.
100%.
Worst advice ever. Be yourself.
Yeah. Authentic.
Number one reason you should be yourself, Jeff, the number one reason is because everybody else is already taken.
Yeah. I love that. I've heard that before, but I love it. It's just, I always say you just be authentic and you'll attract the right people. The minute you're faking yourself, you attract the wrong people. Just simple stats, right? Give me a couple lines from movies. What's your favorite 80s movie?
Probably Caddyshack. That's more of 70s, but I mean, Caddyshack. I'm a big Anthony Michael Hall fan. Weird Science.
Yeah.
I could quote Caddyshack for days. Let's see. I mean, Weird Science is a beauty. Obviously, old school. I love Will Ferrell. Big Will Ferrell fan. Ron Burgundy. I can quote a lot of Ron Burgundy.
I watched Old School with my kids the other day for the first time. Oh, probably not appropriate. Oh man, my son laughed his head off. That's
drinking.
That's a scene I was thinking about when his wife and their friends are in the car and he's running.
The dude's butt cheeks are right in the gut. How do you think we have time to stop at KFC?
Oh, what a classic movie! You had answered this question earlier. I'm going to just repeat it and ask it in a different way. If something were to happen to you today, in a few words, how would you want to be remembered or described?
I would want to be known as someone who was positive. I would want to be known as someone who had an intense work ethic. I would want to be known as someone who was achieved a lot in life, but you never knew it. I would want to be known as someone who was caring and thought of others before himself, and was just a great dad and a good husband.
That's perfect. Is there anything you want to leave with our audience?
Just remember that there's three types of people in life. My boy Tommy Lasorda said this. There's people who watch things happen. There's people who wonder how things happen. And there's people who make things happen. Don't wait for things to happen. Go out, and if you have goals, write them down. Tell someone about them. Yeah. Help your soul. Someone's going to do great things. Like, think about President Obama. As a Black African-American man, he's going to become the first Black president. There's no Black presidents in the United States. Yeah. We don't allow that down here. Yeah. He did it. Why not? I mean, I told my daughter, why don't you be the first president, female president? Someone's going to do it. Why not you? Yeah. Right. So I think just as be the dad that spoke truth into me as a ninth grader. Be the coach that spoke truth into me. The world's got too much negativity. And if COVID's taught us anything, it's about slow down, focus on love versus hate. Forgiveness takes you, reconciliation takes two of us. But if you can forgive people, we're not perfect. We all got gaps.
Yeah. No, I love that. One thing you said there, and I think it's so powerful, is when you said set goals and then tell people about it. That's holding you accountable. And I think that's the biggest thing with a lot of individuals, is they have never allowed themselves the accountability, or they never put themselves in a situation to hold themselves accountable. And that's why goals become a thought and a dream, and it just starts fleeing away because they don't hold themselves accountable to obtain what they really, really want to. So I love what you said, by either write it down or tell somebody about it, because it forces some form of accountability on you to achieve it, right? And once you start going, it starts happening, right? The domino effect.
Yeah, I don't know who said this, but I always like quoting it. It says, a goal without a plan is a wish.
Yeah.
Look at my podcast, Ty Nunez. I don't tell him about it. He doesn't make me do it. Now I'm still in debt. I wrote from writing a book to.
I've never had a podcast, Casey, that you have quoted so many people's names in this podcast. You have done so many shout outs. I was in my head. I should have just been marking with a little tick every time you shouted out somebody, some coach or some friend. I love it because you have appreciated the help or the guidance or just the friendship along the way, and you haven't forgot about it. And I think that just reflects on who you are as a person, which I think is a very important thing. I think is very special. So I appreciate that. I'm saying it in a good way, not in a bad way. So no, I love that.
That's the quarterback in me. So as a quarterback, we get too much glory. And so like I always loved getting my other teammates' names in the paper. I love getting my linemen in the paper.
Yeah.
That when it's about other people, it just fills my tank. That's why I love connecting. I'm a lifelong connector. I love figuring out who I can connect people with and just watch it happen. And then I don't worry about how it's going to help me, because in the end, I know it always comes back to you.
I'm exact same way. Same way. So I love that. This has been awesome, brother. I'm going to put on our show notes how to get a hold of you. If you want to just quickly let the audience know your podcast name, how to get a hold of you through social media, then I'll put on all our show notes as well.
Okay. No, thank you for asking. It's so my podcast is called the Quarterback Dadcast. It's live on all major podcast players. We interview dads. We hear their stories. You're going to hear Jeff's story soon, so stay tuned for that. If people want to learn more about me as a sales and leadership coach, you can just go to my website, which is caseyjacox.com. That's CASEYJACOX.com. And if you're a reader and are interested in not a scratch and sniff book, which is not mine, you can go to Amazon and pick up my book, which is called Win the Relationship, Not the Deal.
Love it, brother. Thank you so much for this. This has been awesome.
Thank you. I'm honored to join you.